A few months ago, a steel company in Anyang, Henan Province, Xinjin Steel, announced it was shutting down, but the company hadn't finished paying its workers. It still owed them wages and hadn't offered any compensation. That sparked frustration and anger among the workers. Videos show over 1,000 workers gathered at the factory gates, demanding clear answers from the company. In another video, workers from Xinjin Steel Group in Shanxi were seen earlier this year protesting in front of the Mian County government offices. They were asking to be paid the Social Security, wages, and medical insurance that had been withheld from them. And that's not the worst of it. A TikToker revealed that Taishan Steel, a major state-owned steel company in Shandong Province, is in even deeper trouble.
Has the situation with Taishan Steel's commercial bills improved? Is there any chance to recover them?
No, not at all. In fact, things may be getting worse. As of January, their commercial bills already defaulted on 11 separate occasions. Employees had nearly 2 billion yuan, about $280 million of their own savings stuck. Payments for construction projects were even higher, and workers hadn't received their full wages in months. Right before the new year, they only got paid for 1 month. Someone familiar with the situation said that Taishan Steel is facing serious problems. It could be heading toward debt defaults, worker unrest, and even legal action. But this isn't just about a few struggling companies. These cases point to a much deeper structural issue across China's steel industry. Against this backdrop, the recent comments made by the CEO of Nippon Steel in Japan start to make even more sense. After completing his company's acquisition of U.S. Steel, Nippon Steel CEO Hashimoto Aiji told the press that Chinese steelmakers are only making a fraction of the profits that Japanese companies earn. He said that due to China's low-price strategy, many steel producers are in serious trouble. Reporters from Yicai, a Chinese business media outlet, looked into the 2024 financial reports of major steel companies in both countries. They found that Nippon Steel made a net profit of 350.2 billion yen last year, which is about $2.37 billion. In comparison, the combined profit of the top 4 most profitable listed steel companies in China was only 16.8 billion yuan, or roughly $2.34 billion. That's less than what Nippon Steel made alone. So even though these are China's top earners, their combined profits still didn't match Japan's largest steel company. According to China Iron and Steel Association, the total profit of the major steel firms it tracks in 2024 was 42.9 billion yuan, or around $5.98 billion. That's a 50.3% drop compared to the year before. Even giants like Bao Steel are under pressure. In 2024, Bao Steel's profits fell by 38.36%. Back in 2022, Bao Steel was the world's most profitable steel company, earning 23.63 billion yuan, around $3.29 billion. Today, it is still China's most profitable steelmaker, but its profits have been shrinking every year. In 2024, its earnings were just 40% of Nippon Steel's. Breaking it down, Bao Steel made about $1.03 billion. CITIC Special Steel made around $714 million. Nanjing Iron and Steel made about $315 million. Hualing Steel made just over $290 million. Other figures paint a similar picture. In 2024, Nippon Steel produced 39.6 million tons of crude steel. After completing the U.S. Steel acquisition in June, its total production capacity jumped to 57.82 million tons. Meanwhile, China Baowu Group produced more than 130 million tons, making it the world's largest steel producer. But its profits were still far behind Japan's top player. So why is there such a huge gap in profits when both countries are doing the same thing? Reports suggest that China and Japan have taken completely different paths when it comes to making money in the steel business. At the beginning of this year, Yao Lin, the president of the China Iron and Steel Association, stated that in 2024, China's steel industry would face a significant drop in profitability due to market imbalances, low steel prices, and high raw material costs. The industry is in a tough situation, with production data showing a clear imbalance between strong supply and weak demand. Companies are struggling to stay afloat. The so-called involution, or vicious competition, is disturbing the market, leading to continuous declines in industry profits. This involution in the steel industry is most directly seen in the pattern of producing more to lose more and selling at lower prices to increase volume. Many steel plants, desperate to maintain cash flow and bank credit, are reluctant to stop their blast furnaces and instead keep cutting prices, sometimes even below the total cost of production. Some companies secretly offer rebates or subsidized shipping costs, creating a hidden discount. This has driven prices down to unsustainable levels, with no company daring to stop production because halting operations would immediately crush them with fixed costs, interest, and wages. Moreover, this fierce competition is not just about pricing. It also manifests in extending payment terms and bill discounting. Many steel companies use commercial bills, factoring, or delayed payments to secure orders, with 6-month to 1-year payment terms becoming the norm. These costs are passed on to downstream suppliers. When commercial bills start defaulting, as in the case of Taishan Steel, it causes a ripple effect throughout the entire supply chain. The resulting credit risks compound within the industry, leading to widespread defaults. On top of that, there is cross-regional dumping of steel products in China, which is another form of destructive competition. According to Times Finance, China's steel industry is stuck in a cycle of high production, high costs, high exports, low demand, low prices, and low profits. While many Chinese steel companies have expanded into foreign markets, their export prices have been falling. Data from previous years shows that in 2020, China exported 53.7 million tons of steel at an average price of $847 per ton. By 2024, total steel exports doubled to 111 million tons, but the average price dropped to $755 per ton. Japan, on the other hand, has been taking a different approach. 30 years ago, Nippon Steel started adjusting its product mix by cutting low-end construction steel and increasing the production of high-strength steel, stainless steel, and other specialty steels. Through technological upgrades, they focused on producing corrosion-resistant steel, including high-strength steel for cars and precision steel for electronics. Today, Nippon Steel not only dominates the Japanese market, but is also a major supplier for high-end manufacturers like Toyota and Honda, providing the steel needed for their vehicles. However, as China's steel exports have grown, its low-price dumping practices have faced increasing resistance from the international community. Since 2024, China has faced 33 anti-dumping investigations, more than the total number of cases from 2020 to 2023. In early 2025, China's steel products were again hit with 14 anti-dumping investigations. For example, on February 1, 2025, Vietnam announced it would impose anti-dumping tariffs of between 19 and 27% on Chinese steel products. On February 20th, South Korea also held a meeting to investigate the dumping of carbon steel and other alloy steel hot-rolled plates and proposed a temporary anti-dumping tariff of 27 to 38% on Chinese products. These two countries are the largest and second-largest destinations for China's steel exports. In 2024, China's steel exports to Vietnam accounted for 11.5%, and exports to South Korea made up 7.4%. Lan Ge Steel Research Center's Deputy Director, Ge Xing, mentioned that after the rise in trade friction over finished steel exports, China began to increase its exports of steel billets, which are an intermediate product. The price of these billets sold to South Korea is about 100 yuan per ton lower than the cost of billets produced by South Korean steel companies. This has left South Korean counterparts confused, wondering how Chinese steel companies can keep cutting their costs. In other words, steel mills in China are dumping products in distant markets, and even with the added cost of shipping and distribution, their prices remain lower than local steel mills. This has effectively pushed competitors out of the market. This long-distance, low-price dumping has led to a complete breakdown of the regional pricing system, forcing local mills to either lower their prices or shut down. This has caused chaos in the industry. In contrast, Ge Xing told reporters that Japanese steel companies have long held a significant advantage in raw material costs by investing in or controlling high-quality overseas mineral resources. They also focus more on producing high-end steel products, which has allowed them to achieve higher profit margins. Compared to China, Japan and South Korea steel plants have been reducing production. Since last year, Japan's Nippon Steel has cut its domestic output by a third and strictly follows the principle of only producing and selling where there is a positive profit. However, experts point out that the underlying cause of this vicious competition in the steel industry is much deeper. Among the key reasons, the contraction of the real estate industry is undoubtedly the direct factor that has crushed the entire steel sector. According to data from the Mingyuan Real Estate Research Institute, the total sales area of commercial housing from January to April 2024 was 290 million square meters, a 20.2% decrease compared to the previous year. It is expected that the total sales for the year will reach 870 million square meters, which is close to the levels seen in 2008 and 2009. Moreover, the debt crisis at Evergrande Group has exacerbated market uncertainty, causing a nationwide wave of real estate defaults, further troubling many real estate companies. Analyst Jian Hua of Shanghai Steel Union pointed out that in 2024, the price of steel in China has generally been in the range of 3,300 to 3,500 yuan per ton, which is 600 yuan per ton lower than the price in 2023. The widening industry losses are mainly due to a significant drop in the demand for construction steel. Davy J. Wong, an economist from the U.S., pointed out that for over 2 decades, real estate has consumed more than 40% of the steel used in China. The steel industry has been heavily reliant on the rapid development of infrastructure and the real estate sector. However, this growth has largely stalled, and finances are now in a very difficult position. The demand for steel has sharply declined. After more than 20 years of infrastructure development, China has already built most of the roads and housing it needed, meaning the steel capacity access will be a long-term issue. However, Wang also emphasized that the steel industry's current struggles are tied to deeper economic problems, notably the dependence between local governments and state-owned enterprises. It all started with the large-scale steel production during the Mao Zedong era, where China built many steel plants, most of which were state-owned. In recent years, state-owned enterprises have acquired private companies, resulting in even more state-owned enterprises. Eventually, this has led to an industry-dependent policy, where the government was forced to support the steel sector, creating a very complex bureaucratic structure. In August of last year, China's Ministry of Industry and Information Technology announced a temporary halt on publishing new steel production capacity replacement plans. Any new steel plants would be considered illegal. At that time, Xu Xiangchun, Director of Information at Shanghai Steel Union, explained that during the capacity replacement process, companies and local governments often found ways to circumvent the restrictions and continue to expand steel production. With demand already dropping, this has worsened the issue of excess steel capacity, which led to the decision to implement an emergency brake on further expansion. Davy J. Wong pointed out that China's entire economic structure, especially its industrial structure, is fundamentally flawed. The first issue is that real estate and infrastructure have been used to drive GDP growth. The second problem is the continuous expansion of government debt, which is often used to maintain these infrastructure projects. This is unsustainable. Third, the steel industry, being state-run, follows a planned economy model. He believes this model is bound to fail in a market economy. Wang specifically highlighted that the decline of the steel industry is a typical case of the failure of the planned economy. Under the planned economy model, the steel industry has long been dominated by the National Macroeconomic Plan, bearing the dual political tasks of stabilizing growth and ensuring employment. However, local governments and related departments often focus on expanding production capacity and driving investment, rather than allocating resources according to market demand. This capacity expansion, driven by administrative orders, ignores market supply and demand rules, leading to severe structural overcapacity. Many inefficient and repetitive steel projects continue to be launched, wasting resources and exacerbating the overcapacity problem. This has squeezed industry profits to the point of almost disappearing. Reports have also shown that the economic performance of steel companies has significantly declined, leading to numerous wage disputes. In the western region of China, a key steel company, Shanxi Hanzhong Steel Group, has owed wages, social security, and medical insurance for over 10 years, totaling hundreds of millions of yuan, which has made life difficult for the workers. In November 2024, workers continuously protested outside the local government office to demand their wages. According to them, the company currently has around 3,406 employees and has owed a total of 369 million yuan, about $51 million in social security contributions since 2015. 33 million yuan in medical insurance, 62 million yuan in unpaid wages, 3 million yuan in unemployment benefits, and a 10-year unpaid employment guarantee deposit. Wang stated that steel companies going bankrupt inevitably leads to massive unemployment and causes significant shocks to the financial system. Many steel companies are listed on the stock market, and their bankruptcy could impact China's stock and financial markets, increasing the bad debts in the banking system. Therefore, he believes that the large-scale bankruptcies in China's steel industry are a microcosm of the entire planned economy model and a typical case of its inevitable failure. Just like the previous collapse of bike sharing and the current problems with electric vehicles, the final result will be widespread bankruptcies. In response, Xu Zhen, a senior figure in China's capital markets, believes that the Chinese Communist Party's authoritarian system and the decision-makers' lack of economic understanding have led to a society suffering from a spiral of deflation, unemployment, and bankruptcy. It's not just the steel industry. Almost every industry will eventually face bankruptcy, restructuring, and reshuffling, just at different speeds.